Hey now, it's Sharon, and I'm back to share another idea on how to reform the police. If you're new to the channel, I'm a retired detective. I worked for 20 years for a southeastern city in the US, and I was also in the military. I'm sharing my experiences along with my perspective in hopes of just giving you ideas on how to reform the police. And this is the table, so to speak, that I choose to share, social media. Um, I've been sharing ideas on how to reform the police on an agency level, and I've been narrowing it down to the individual. I go back and forth from the agency to the rank and file to the individual officer. And this question is for people that are already in policing. And I guess it would be for people that are coming into policing. I would ask this question: how do you see the people that you're responsible for, the area that you patrol? How do you see the people in that area? And for me, I asked that question early in my career, and I saw people as numbers. I talk about that in my productivity versus quota video. I saw people as numbers because, of course, I explained that the sergeant was coming down on me. So now I got to go to the area where I know I'm going to get these numbers, bodies, so the sergeant can stay off of me. I shared that in that video. And as I got it more into my career, excuse me, I started to see people as individuals. And what helped me do that, here's a story. This happened probably about 20 years ago now. I had a certain beat. I started to go to the neighborhood meetings. If they were having a party, I'd stop and, talk to individuals or talk to kids on the street. And there was a guy, he had some kind of mental illness. He was hard to understand, but if you took the time to listen to him, he was missing teeth. If you listen to him, he always made sense. Like, it sounded like gibberish if you didn't take the time, but I took the time to listen to him and he made sense. There were times when I felt like he was off to the left. But as I saw him, on my daily patrols, and I would stop and talk to him, and we developed this relationship. Fast forward, I don't know, it was a couple of months later, I hear his address come up on the radio. And I'm just coming to work. So I'm like, okay, let me hurry up and get over there. Let me see what's going on. Because this guy, he doesn't really bother anybody. He picks up garbage throughout the neighborhood. He might drink a beer or two, but he doesn't bother anybody. So when I get there, I see this young officer. He's trying to kick the door open with the person that I just described. He's standing behind the door and he's like talking, but you can't understand him. But he's holding the door cracked open, and the young officer is jumping on the door, literally backing up and jumping on the door while this guy is holding the door. So I said to the officer, I said, okay, give me a chance. What's going on? And I don't remember exactly what the problem was, but I think he either walked away from the officer and ran into the house, and they thought he had drugs on him or something. And he's not known to have drugs. He just drinks. So I said, give me a second. And I'm talking to the guy. I'm not going to say his name. Let's just call him James. I'm talking to James. James cracks the door and he said, I'll speak to you, in his voice, but I don't want him to come in. And I'm like, okay, if I get everybody to go away, would you talk to me? And he said, yes. Now, mind you, the young officer's trying to kick down the back door. And I'm like, do you guys have a warrant? What's going on? And they said they think he has drugs and this, that, and the other thing. So I said to the officers, back up. I'll get him to open the door. Let me just talk to him. And as I said that young officer came running by me and kicked the door down. Well, tried to kick the door down and fell back. And I think I heard the sergeant arriving on scene. And I said, okay, I'm going to back up because they're not listening to me. I backed up and I let the sergeant handle it. Fast forward, the end of the night, I come in. I see James sitting in the precinct. And he's just mumbling because he has some kind of mental illness and he's older. And then he sees me and he's like, I told you I would talk to you. And I said, what happened? But of course, the young officer's writing all these tickets, charges. And I said to the sergeant, I said, you might want to check that. Long story short, something came out of it. That officer got in trouble. I don't know if he got fired right then and there, but there were some other issues that he had. Okay. Now, the reason why I asked that question about how do you see the people that you patrol or the area that you're responsible for is, initially, I would have thought like the young officer. He's just a number. I'm trying to get these bodies so the sergeant stays off of me. I don't know if I would have kicked down doors, but I'm trying to get numbers. I don't care if he's the friendliest guy in the world. If he's doing something wrong, I'm going to get him. And that was probably the young officer's mindset. But like I said, that instance made me back up because I knew this guy and I knew he didn't have drugs. He was a drinker. Now, beer, if you had said beer, yeah. And so I started to see individuals and throughout that whole thing and the whistleblowing and me trying to evaluate my actions, I took a step back and I'm like, these are human beings. These are people. I think he lived with his grandmother and she was taking care of him. He would collect bottles and turn them in and stuff like that. So I'm like, I know his grandmother. I know him. And I started to get to know the people. I would go to the neighborhood meetings and I started to see the area differently, even though it was a lot of poor people and a lot of blight. I initially thought my home was better than that. And then I started to think, Sharon, come on. Is it really better? You don't know what's going on in other people's houses, really? You know some neighbors, but do you know them, you know? And then something happened in my neighborhood that was unexpected. That, of course, it was unexpected. But an individual, he unalived himself in front of his kids. So you never know what's going on in a person's house, but does that make my neighborhood better? And then I started to think about my own individual home. How do people experience me? How does my family experience me? Is it the same as the people out on the street? That was another question I had to ask myself. Do they my family experience me like the people in the neighborhoods experience me? And that was a definite no. So then I had to check myself on that. I was a little more firm, a lot more firm, a lot more harsh with the people in the neighborhoods that I patrol because I saw them a certain way until I got to know them. My family, I would like to believe that there are more good times than bad times, but I know, and I know how I was, meaning I knew everything. I was always right. You guys better listen. I've seen the worst of the worst and that kind of thing. My family's experienced that from me. So yeah, I had to ask those two questions. So I'm just asking, as an officer, or you're thinking about becoming an officer, how do you see people that may not live like you? How do you see the neighborhood that may not be like yours? Because if you can't see yourself in it, then that's a problem. You can't see or empathize or sympathize with the people there, it's probably not for you. But I just want to share that little bit. There are more facets to that, but I'll share more of the idea next week. And as usual, take a look at our our online store. The link is in the description. And always remember, you don't necessarily have to go through a thing to learn from it. Talk to you later. Bye.